Hello everyone, and welcome back to Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Today we're going to see trouble overseas, but it isn't Ireland this time. And then we're going to see things going on in the family, and it's a bit like a soap opera. So I'm anxious to dig into it. Egypt and the Sudan had a crisis going on since 1881. Too long a time for anyone of the princess's impatient temperament. Princess Alexandra said to Poisonby that she made a surprising confession that she enjoyed talking about high treason sometimes and meddling in politics, which she knew she had no business to do. She was, as she explained, tired of Egyptian bother and bored by the dilatory policy adopted by her friend Gladstone. "Why don't you take the place at once and have done with it? Anybody but dear William would have done so long ago." Throughout 1884, her letters to Prince George are full of comments on the situation in Egypt and the Sudan and descriptions of the excited atmosphere at Marlborough House when they are rushing in and not from the War Office all day long. She was shocked February 1885 when she heard the news of the fall of Khartoum and of General Gordon's death. So I looked this up into another source and found out that General Charles Gordon was in command of the British-Egyptian forces defending the city. And then the Mahdist forces, led by Muhammad Ahmad, besieged Khartoum for nearly a year. The British government failed to send adequate reinforcements to relieve the city, and the siege ended with the Mahdists capturing Khartoum and resulting in Gordon's death. And now we're back into the book. And the princess said, "If only we had gone out there long ago, all this might have been spared." The princess was worried about the comfort and well-being of the British troops in Egypt and the Sudan. The National Society for Aid to the Sick and Wounded in the time of war had been founded in 1872, with Princess Christian as its chairman. The Princess of Wales started her own branch of the society, whose main object was to be the supply of comforts to the sick and wounded. She was determined to send comforts to all troops, whether sick or well. Nobody dared to tell her that the National Society, being affiliated to the Red Cross, was strictly forbidden by terms of Constitution to do anything to help the fighting men. The princess's branch, though, had a triumphant success. Florence Nightingale knew, too, the necessity of looking after the welfare of the troops, not only when they were ill, but also when they were well. Nothing organized had been done in this way until the princess founded her branch, and it was a triumphant success. They sent out books, games, amusements, and small comforts to the men behind the actual battlefront. It was done to make things more tolerable on the empty hours spent in the hot Egyptian summer. The princess herself gave a docker hut, made of course in Denmark. Prototypes of the many recreation huts run by such bodies as the YMCA during the 2 world wars of the present century. 2 river launches were also bought to help the transportation of the wounded, one of them suitably named the Alexandra, doing valuable work in the remote regions south of Aswan, where the princess herself had spent such happy days during her Egyptian holiday. Well, now we're getting into the soap opera part of the story. The royal family during this time was saddened by the death of King Leopold on the 28th of March, 1884. He had many illnesses through his time due to his hemophilia. His sister-in-law, the princess, to whom he was particularly devoted, had done all she could to cheer and amuse him and to bring some pleasure into his life. Now she grieved for his young wife and family and for Queen Victoria, faced with the loss of a second child only 5 years after Princess Alice's death. The Queen leaned on the arm of Princess Alexandra during Prince Leopold's funeral in St. George's Chapel, and afterward it was the princess who led her, weepingly bitterly, back to the carriage, and she said, "Dear Alex, so kind and helpful." Throughout this year, Queen Victoria was much concerned about the love affair of her granddaughter, Princess Victoria of Prussia, and the Prince of Bulgaria, Alexander of Battenberg, known in his family as Sandro. Prince Alexander had originally owned his position in Bulgaria to Russian influence. He had afterwards quarreled with Russia. For this reason, Bismarck opposed his marriage with a Prussian princess, as indeed everyone who looked at the question from a political point of view. The only people on the side of the lovers were Queen Victoria and her daughter, the Crown Princess, who both found Princess Alexandra charming. There was a problem when Princess Alexandra had a rare indiscretion that added fuel to the fire. In conversation with his sister-in-law, the Tsar made some very derogatory comments on the Prince of Bulgaria, remarking that it was merely amused him to watch the poor man writhe in his struggle against the inevitable fate. The princess repeated these remarks in a letter to one of her Hessian relations, though they ultimately came to the ears of Prince Alexander himself. The result was that there was tension between Bulgaria and the Tsar, and it became even more acute after that. In the end, Prince Alexander lost both his bride and the Bulgarian throne after a fantastic episode when he was abducted, presumably by Russian agents, and he abdicated in August of 1886. Shortly after that, he and Princess Victoria, who had been deeply attached to one another, agreed that their engagement must be abandoned. In a letter to Prince George, the princess gave her own version of Prince Alexander's abduction. They say it is a Russian plot, but who knows that it's not the work of Mr. Bismarck himself. He put him there, and finding he did not do exactly as he wished, he may have whisked him off now and cleverly put the blame apparently on Russian shoulders. So the prince's hatred of Germany was as strong as ever. In addition to all this, Prince Alexander's brother, Prince Henry of Battenberg, had also fallen in love, his choice being Queen Victoria's daughter, Princess Beatrice. When Queen Victoria first heard the news, she was horrified. She had planned on keeping her youngest child to herself permanently. She talked to the Princess of Wales, who was her confidant. Princess Alexandra gave her opinions to the Queen in a letter dated the 24th of August, 1884. In spite of her sympathy with the Queen's feelings, it's clear that she was really on the side of Princess Beatrice. After saying that she and the prince had talked the matter over and were in complete agreement, she wrote, "I must not close my letter without telling you, dearest Mamma, how much I felt you again having placed so much confidence in me on a subject which I know has given you such pain, even to mention it to anyone, as you have always nursed the hope of keeping your one little ewe lamb entirely to yourself. I can therefore well understand what a terrible shock it must have been to you when you heard that she had formed a new interest. We must hope, however, that it will all be for the best, and that she will continue for many long years to be the same help and comfort to you that she has hitherto always been. Please remember that whenever it is a comfort to you to open your lonely, overburdened heart, each word that you say will always be sacred to your most devoted and loyal child, Alex." In hoping that the princess's hopes were realized, the Queen took a great liking to Prince Henry, or Lico, to give him his family nickname, who was quite prepared to agree that he and his wife should make their home for her. For once the cliché came true. Instead of losing a daughter, Queen Victoria gained a loved and loving son. And now the Princess of Wales's own children were reaching an age where their love affairs could cause anxiety to their parents. Mrs. Stornham, one of her ladies-in-waiting, had died in 1883, leaving 2 orphan children. The warm-hearted princess had been much attached to their mother, and it made Harry and Julie Stoner her special charge. Most of their holidays were spent with the royal children, who treated them almost as brother and sister. Now Prince George had fallen in love with the attractive Julie, a commoner and a Roman Catholic. The princess dealt with the situation deftly and with exquisite delicacy, so she took great pains to do or say nothing that could tarnish the luster of her son's idol, whilst making perfectly clear that in the nature of things it must remain an idol and nothing more. Wisely she stressed her own great liking for Julie, such a pretty, simple, unaffected dear, and with that strange disregard for her own position that was so typical of her, she appeared genuinely surprised to discover that Julie was always the same and comes to me, old dear mother dear, for everything. In the same letter she writes explicitly of the inseparable nature of the barriers between boy and girl. There it is, and alas, rather a sad case, I think, for you both, my 2 poor children. I only wish you could marry and be happy, But alas, I fear that cannot be. In a lighter mood she can laugh with, but never at her son, as on the occasion when he is photographed looking just like a loving couple with his cousin, the brat, Princess Charlotte of Saxe-Meiningen, and Julie apparently doesn't quite approve of the combination. Prince George's affection for Julie, according to Sir Harold Nicholson, rendered Prince George immune from any other compromising associations during the years when he was absent from home. Prince George not only was influenced by his affection for Julie, but also by his affection for his mother. The princess wrote to Prince George on 10 May 1886, "I must say it is good of you to have resisted all temptation so far, and it is the greatest proof you could possibly give of how much you wish to please me that you should have done it for my sake, and the promise you gave me of your own accord a few nights before you left. No words can express how grateful I feel to God for having given me such a good son in every way. God will reward you for it here and hereafter." A few months later she wrote, "I am so pleased and touched at all you tell me about yourself, and how faithfully you have stuck to your word and promised you gave to your old mother dear." So I will end the video here. It sounded like the princess was in the middle of everything in this episode. It felt like a soap opera of sorts, with all the love and breakups going on, and Princess Alexandra was in the middle of it all. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't subscribed, if you could do so, it would help the channel to grow, as well as giving it a thumbs up. It's all a great help. And if you haven't clicked on the notification bell, if you could do that, it lets you know when a video is posted. More importantly, I want to wish everyone a good day, and tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you. Bye.